Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's webinar. I am so thrilled that you could join us here tonight. My name is Sam Anderson. I am a regional teacher trainer for C2 Education. I've been doing this. I started as a teacher, worked for over 10 years helping students with their college applications, getting them through from the beginning, from choosing schools, working through the essays, working through filling out the application, early decision, regular decision, all of that. So I'm really happy to be here tonight to talk to you and share with you everything that there is to know about applying to college the right way. What should you be doing and when should you be doing it? So we're sort of going to start off with the very simple thing, right? Where are you applying? Right? Where do we want to, what colleges, right? How do you make your college list? So the first step of sort of making your college list is sort of taking a look at where you already are, right? What you've done, where you stand compared to others, where you stand compared to the colleges and what they've accepted. Now, the best two places to sort of go to is obviously most schools offer a Naviance account. That is always a great place to start. It gives a great overview. It gives sometimes comparisons of like where you are to people in your school who have been accepted, who haven't been accepted. And it's a really great resource to use. Another one is, of course, College Board Big Future. College Board Big Future is a great college search database. You can go through, you can look at like what the median SAT scores are, whether they need APs, what their AP college credit policies are. It's a really good sort of overview of what you need to do to get into that school. Then, of course, you want to sort of create your college list. Now, a good college list sort of has three different groups of schools. You have your dream, your reach schools. These are the ones where you are below the sort of average, the median level of scores and grades needed to get into those schools. Now, dream schools, those are our reach schools, those are our dream schools. Those are the schools that, like, if we get into, we're more than likely going. The problem is, right, there's often a lot of those. There's a lot of those schools that we really want. But the reality of the matter is you really don't want most of your college list to be your dream and reach schools. It's not the best way forward on that. So you want to make sure you have somewhere between like 1 to 3, roughly a quarter of your college list should be your dream or reach schools. Quarter, maybe 30% max. Should be those dream or reach schools. So if you have a list of 10, you're looking at around 3 dream reach schools. However, most of the schools that you want to be sort of putting on your college list, the largest bulk of them should be your standard or your target schools. Now, your standard ones is you are in the median, you're of those freshmen. Again, if you're looking at like College Board Big Future, you're looking at Naviance, you're sort of like right in the middle of the pack, so to speak. Maybe a little bit above in terms of your grades, in terms of your scores. Now, that doesn't take into consideration any of the other aspects of the college application process, but in terms of the grades and the score, you're right there in the middle. You're not at the high end, but you're not below it. Now, most schools, when you look at, they give you they give you the sort of what the first quartile or the bottom 25, the top of that bottom 25 and the bottom of that upper 75%. Now, for a good target school, you really want to be in the median to that 75% range, if not above that. But you really want to be aiming there. You don't want to be, super far below. Versus a dream school, you're probably going to end up a little bit more in the median to the lower 25% range. That's sort of that ideal location for you to be. Now, your standard schools, your target schools, they're going to be, again, the bulk of it. You want about 50% of your college list to be your standard target schools. These are the ones that, and a good standard school is one that you want to go to, right? It's not one that you're settling for. It's one that you want to go to, that you're happy to get into, and that you would be happy going all 4 years to. They have a good department of whatever it is you're looking to do, but it's something you should be happy with, not one of those schools where you're just like, well, I guess if I get in, I'll go. It's something you want to make sure that you're actually going to be happy being there. Your safety schools, the last group, again, that makes probably that bottom 25%. These are the ones where you're going to be above that 75% range. You're going to be sometimes above like the maximum. Sometimes, right, there's those schools that are like, yeah, well, we accept students with a GPA of an unweighted GPA of 3.1 to 3.7, and you have a 3.9, right? So you're well above that. Those are great for your safety schools. These are the ones that you have an almost, and I never want to say certain because nothing's ever certain, but you have an almost certain chance of getting into. These are your safety schools. These are, again, that bottom list. They should be schools that you'd like to go to, right? You're okay going to it. If you're thinking it might be one that you think of transferring out, but at the end of the day, again, no school on your college list should be a school that you don't want to go to, because there's a possibility you might have to. So make sure when you're choosing these colleges, you're not just choosing colleges to fill the quota. You're choosing colleges that you actually want to go to and you actually might like. Now, the way of finding that is to do your research, right? Is to sort of jot down all the schools you think you'd be interested in, and then talk to people. Talk to people about what's good fits, right? Talk to your friends, talk to your parents, talk to guidance counselors, talk to teachers, talk to siblings, talk to relatives, right? Sometimes you have a cousin or a cousin's mother's brother's sister who went there, which I just sort of circled around on that. But like, there's sometimes people who know, or maybe you have a family, a friend of a friend who went to that school, and they can tell you a bit more and sort of what the school is going to be like. And sort of how. Talk to teachers, talk to guidance counselors. Guidance counselors, remember, they deal with a lot of schools. They get a lot of information from these schools. And so they're often a really great resource when it comes to sort of saying, you know what, given what you've been showing in school, I think you're going to fit really well there. Or, you know what, I'm not sure the atmosphere is so great for you, right? It's more than just what you match in terms of numbers. It's also about what's a good fit for you personally. Then, if you're still uncertain and you're still looking at, do more research. Go to college fairs. NACAC. NACAC is a massive organization of college admissions counselors, and it is, they do fairs, multiple times through the year. A lot of fairs are occurring right at the time that people are starting to look at applying, right? They occur at the beginning of the school year, end of summer, they also then occur, around the time that like decisions come out. So there's a lot of these college fairs that you can go to and that you can check up on and talk to representatives of those schools. Those representatives of those schools are often admissions officers. They often, play a part in the decisions. They often, have a say. They often know a lot about the school. Well, they definitely know a lot about the school. And if not that, use online search engines. Again, big future. There's this guy, there's Naviance, there's college data. There's all sorts of engines that you can look at to find information about the college. And of course, the websites. Go to the college's websites of any of the schools that you are at all interested in and look through their course catalog. Look at who their teachers are. Look at their clubs. Look at what the area around the school is going to be like. You're going to be spending 4 years there. Make sure there are things to do either on the campus or in the town or city around it. Make sure that it's, again, someplace that you would want to go to and spend that time there. And if you're still, right, if you still don't know, or, in general, just do it, right? Go to campuses, go to campus visits. If you can, do them in person. If not, there are a lot of schools that do offer virtual tours on their website, or like there's a video on YouTube where you have someone sort of guiding you around the campus. Now, granted, a lot of the virtual tours, a lot of the sort of video ones, they're sort of the campus and the school at its like most perfect state. That's why I'd always, again, recommend doing a campus visit in person. But if you can't, either due to logistics or finance or whatever reason it is that you can't necessarily go visit the school in person, do look at it, do try to sort of find out and make sure that like, hey, I really like the way this looks or not. It also provides great material when it comes to a personal statement. Why, yes, we're going to talk a bit about some of the statements later on. And it gives you a feel. I actually chose the school I went to. I went to Sarah Lawrence College. I chose the school I went to because I went to go visit the campus, and I really liked the feel for the campus. And from all the campuses I went to, I chose that school not just because of its prestige or anything like that, but also because I really liked the way it felt when I went to that school. And in all honesty, they're fun. They, especially if you go to one of the official ones, they kind of pamper you up a bit. They kind of like, pull out all the stops, so to speak, right? They're trying to recruit you. And so they're often a lot of fun to go to. So when you do go on campus visits, when you do go to these campuses, pay attention to obviously the classrooms, the academic facilities, labs, computer labs, anything along those lines. Very important. Student housing, you are going to have to live there. Most schools have required freshmen on campus housing. So what are the dorms like? Ideally, try to see maybe a dorm that isn't on the tour, because a lot of times the dorms on the tour are like, again, that sort of nicest, highest place and not what the average dorm looks like. Look at the study spaces, go to the library, look at the quad, look at the dining options, what food there is, what is it like? Is it cafeteria style? Is it something like, are there restaurants? Are there like little sandwich shops? What is there to eat? What times are they open? Because you never know, you might be pulling a late night and need something to eat late night. What time are those dining facilities open till? And of course, the surroundings, local town, just how nice it is to walk around the campus. A lot of times you spend a lot of time walking on these campuses. Is it a nice walk? Is it everything ridiculously far apart? Listen to the information sessions when you go, right? They'll have a lot of information. They'll talk about the history. Then you take the official tour that they give you, but then again, as I was saying before, take your own sort of wandering tour. Look at dorms that they're not showing you. Look at this, really canvass the whole school. Spend the time you've gone there. Don't just do what they sort of direct you to. Feel free to explore on your own. Almost all campuses are open to that. So you really, it's usually not, especially you'll have like a visitor badge, so you don't really have to worry about like being stopped by anything along those, security or anything along those lines. So feel free to wander around, look at things, take your own look at those, and maybe, go to a dining, when people are eating or when they're not eating or anything along those lines. Now, once you've done that, once you have sort of decided what colleges you want to go to, we actually have to fill out the application. So let's first talk about the different types of applications. There are basically two major types of application. There is the school-specific application, right? This is a application that is specific for the college. It's got its own essays, its own questions. Almost all applications are online nowadays, rather than having to like print them out and mail them in, as it happened to, as your parents could probably all tell you, or if you are a parent, as you probably remember. But right, they're almost always online nowadays. A lot of times they have their own, sometimes they have their own deadline. Classic example of this is the University of California applications. They are due at a different time than the Common App or the Coalition app, right? Sometimes they have their own deadlines. Sometimes that's where like rolling admission comes into play. Again, we're going to talk about all this a little bit later. The other option is a collective application. It is one centralized application that colleges sort of say, we are willing to accept this application instead of our own. It's one application that you fill out that is then sent to multiple colleges, which means there's one essay that you write that is then sent to the multiple colleges. So you can't personalize it for a particular dream school, right? If you really, really, really want to go to Harvard and you're filling out the Common application, you can't write your personal statement all about Harvard, because then when it goes to every other school, they're going to be like, what are you doing? So you're going to be sort of, one app essay, so you do have to make it somewhat general. Sometimes if colleges want additional information, we're going to again talk about this a little bit later, they're going to ask for it, they're going to have supplements. Colleges will add their own supplements, they'll have questions, they'll have extra essays on that. The two biggest examples are the Common and the Coalition app. These are the two major forms of collective application. Now, what are they? So, Common and Coalition app are two major forms of collective applications that colleges have sort of signed up for. What is the same? They are both universal. They're both collective application. One application is sent to multiple schools, and most of the actual major form of the application is the same, right? The same parts need to be completed on both those applications. Now, the Common app is the most popular, the most widely used. Nearly 900 colleges use this. That means you're going to get a wider reach. If you want to fill out less work, if you want to do less applications, the Common app is good, especially if I've had students that are applying to 20 plus colleges. If you're applying to that many colleges, you probably want to go to the Common app, right? Because you need to prioritize your workload. You're going to have possible supplements for 20 different colleges. That is a lot. Now, there are some colleges that use one and not the other. There are some colleges that, prefer the Coalition app to the Common app. So you have to sort of know what colleges they accept. Now, the only major ones that accept only the Coalition app, there are three major colleges. One is Virginia Tech, University of Washington, and University of Maryland College Park. They accept the Coalition app only. Now, the Coalition app is a smaller group of colleges. There's a little bit over 150. However, the big thing about the Coalition app is it's named for a coalition for accessibility and affordability. So they have to meet, the colleges that there have to meet at least 2 of the 3 guidelines that the coalition sets for accessibility, affordability, and success. Meaning that they need to be, they need to offer admittance and acceptance to a wide spread of geographic, demographic backgrounds. They need to offer the ability, either also possible offer the ability to get out of college with little to no debt, or they need to show a proven success in their graduation record, that most of their students graduate college. This means that a large chunk of your Ivy League schools do accept the coalition, because almost all of them meet the success record. Now, what this means for you, the Coalition app, you should be filling out the Coalition app, especially if you are a student who feel that you're an underrepresented population, either demographically, ethnically, religiously, any form of sort of underrepresented group is something that would be asked on the application, is something you should be looking. Or if you are in a situation where you are going to be seeking large amounts of financial aid, filling out the coalition application indicates to colleges that that is something that you might need. Now, that does not mean that is going to decrease your chances of acceptance. That is the whole point of the coalition. These are schools that have promised that a student's financial status is not impacting of their application acceptance. So if you are a school that is going to need large amounts of financial aid, etc., the Coalition app is a good thing to fill out because it is going to indicate to colleges that that is the case. And it also tends to mean that you sometimes have a better chance of getting that financial aid or getting that merit-based help from the school. So those are that is probably the biggest difference between the Common and the Coalition. Common, broader reach, are really great if you're applying to tons and tons of schools. In fact, actually last year we had a student who applied to 27 different schools. I'm assuming they used the Common app. The Coalition app, right, is much better if you are either an underrepresented group and you want that accessibility, or you are thinking you're going to be needing to apply for a large amount of financial aid, or even just, a substantial amount of financial aid. That is the major difference between the two. Now, what is the same is the application deadlines. So let's talk about the application deadline. There are 2 sort of major groups of application deadlines. There is your non-restrictive. Non-restrictive means that you are not bound to go to that school. All right. If you apply there, you are allowed to apply and look at multiple different colleges. On the other hand, there are early. Okay. Early means obviously you were applying earlier than the deadline. In between those, early action. However, there is a subgroup of applications that are called restrictive, right? Sort of the opposite of non-restrictive. Restrictive applications mean that if you apply early decision or restrictive early action. Now, there's a slight difference between the two, and we'll talk about those in a couple seconds. But if you were applying to a restrictive status, you cannot apply to any other schools under that status. So if you're applying early decision, you cannot apply early decision to any other school. If you are applying restrictive early action, you cannot apply early to any other schools. Early action is a non-restrictive early. Again, we'll talk about those. So let's talk about the basic non-restrictives. Regular decision. This is the sort of general vanilla option, for lack of a better word. This is usually, it's your later deadline. It is when the bulk of students tend to apply to schools. It is, I don't want to say the one that offers, it offers, right, you get your admission decision in April and all that information. This is really good is if you are, because one of the things with the regular decision, right, is it's a little bit later. So schools get your first semester senior year grades. So if you start off the senior year a little bit slow, or let's say you had a not great junior year, not great sophomore year, not great freshman year, and you really want that senior year to really pump up your GPA or pump up the sort of application profile that you want to send to the school, regular decision is really good for that. So let's say you're one of those students that you're like applying to Harvard and you get off to a really slow start in freshman year, or something happened and you get off to a slow start in junior year, and you really want to make sure that senior year grades are there to really boost it up. You're probably going to want to look at regular decision because it is gonna, be reflected in your application. That whole first semester versus an early is just gonna have the first quarter. The other one is if you are planning to take additional standardized tests, the subject test, the SAT, the ACT. If you are applying regular decision, you have a couple more options to take those tests than you would if you apply early. Those are the main benefits of regular decision. It gives you a little bit more time to also, other one that I kind of forgot here is it gives you time to complete the application, right? You have time to really hone in on those essays. So if you got a late start in the college application process, it gives you time to hone in on that. Rolling admissions. Rolling admissions is very simple. The earlier you apply, the higher the chance you get in. It is a first come, first served basis. These are the ones that you'll see with like application deadlines in like March. They really aren't in March. It's really a first come, first served basis. So if you see an application deadline in March, it's probably rolling admissions, and the earlier you get it in, the better the chance you have of getting into the school. Now, on the early plans. Early plans, students apply to their top colleges. Early action is a non-restrictive. You apply earlier, you apply usually 2 months earlier than the school. You receive a decision far in advance. So instead of receiving your decision in April, you usually receive it in December. If you apply early action, keyword there is the action, you are not obligated to attend that school. You are not obligated to accept that offers, and you can apply to other schools under that situation. However, if there is a restrictive early action, and not every college offers this, if you see restrictive early action, or sometimes they call it something different, sometimes it's like early action 1, early action 2, make sure you read the college's website to find out what it is that they're calling it. Restrictive early action, however it's called, is exactly like early actions, but you cannot apply early to any other schools. You are only allowed to apply early, be it early action or early decision, to that one school. So again, when it comes to this, make sure you look at the college's website to find out what it is they're calling it, what it is it is. Now, applying early action does not increase your admittance chance unless it's the restrictive one. The biggest one is obviously hearing back early. Gives you information. It means you're worrying and waiting less, right? It's a like 1 month turnaround on finding out about your acceptance rather than 4 months. And it again also helps you plan next steps, since you do find out before regular decision is even due. Right? You find out about early action before regular decision is due. It allows you to sort of figure out what your next steps are. If you're going to apply regular decision to other schools, if you need to sort of, either if you're going to accept the offer, if you're going to look at other schools, if you're going to discuss financial aid. If you are applying early action, you do not need to give them a decision until April. So again, you have that time. You just find out early and get to sort of either have a little less stress or plan the next steps for that. Now, early decision, on the other hand, is a commitment. You are declaring the school your number one choice. If that is really the number one reason that you want to apply early decision. If you are like, if I get into this school, I am 100% going. Because if admitted, you are required to enroll. Now, if you apply early decision, you can apply to other schools. You can apply early action, not restrictive early action to other schools, not early decision. And you can apply regular decision. However, again, if you get into your early decision school, you are required to go. So, why do you do it? Because it is a statistical improvement. If you apply early decision, that is saying to a school, you're my top choice. I get in, I'm going. So you have, right? I mean, you can see the numbers, 62% about 2 years ago compared to 50%, right? So if you have the grades, if you have the scores, if you have everything you need, if it's a target school and you are, or even if it's a REACH school, and you are like 100% certain that you want to go there. It's your dream school, it's your parents' dream school for you. If it's like, whatever the reasons may be, if that is like the school that you have been dreaming about since you were 5 years old, apply early decision, right? It doesn't hurt, right? Apply early decision. Usually what happens if you do get sort of rejected from early action or early decision, they usually just defer you to the regular admission pool. So if it is a school that you are 100% wanting to go to, apply early decision. Now, let's talk about the deadlines really quickly. If you apply early, the deadlines are usually from November to December. Usually early decision is either November 1st. Sometimes, especially if you're doing like a direct med program or a 7 years med program or anything like that, sometimes you'll have an earlier application deadline in October 15th. Sometimes they offer two different ones, right? They offer like super early and like October 15th, and then maybe a little bit later in early action at November 15th. So again, look up on the website what the application deadlines are for that particular school. Another big one, University of California is due November 30th or December 1st. Depends on the day. It's usually due by like 11:59 November 30th. So and the reason we put that on here is it is a massive draw, right? Tons and tons and tons of students apply to the University of California, the state school system. It's huge, right? UCLA last year, I think, had the most applicants to any school in the country. So it's important to know. Regular decision is usually mid-December to mid-January. Again, sometimes ranges from December 15th to January 15th. However, again, especially if you look at like rolling admissions, which is in that sort of regular decision pool, they can be as late as the beginning of April. So again, I cannot stress this enough. Look up the application, look up what it is that you're going to be applying for, and see when it is. Now, let's talk about the actual application. So, what's in the application? There are basically 8 major components. There's a profile, there's your family information, education, testing, activities, writing, supplements, letters, recommendation. The beginning step is pretty simple, right? Your profile is your name, your birth date, address. It also, though, includes ethnicity, right? We were talking before about the Coalition app and that underrepresented population. It includes your ethnicity, countries of origin, languages spoken, especially if English is not your first language. That is sort of all about you, the basic information about you. Then there is your family section. Names, birth dates of your parents, of your siblings, immediate family only. They don't need your uncle, they don't need your third cousin once removed. But it also asks for the occupations and the levels of education. The occupations are often used to sort of figure out financial ability. Levels of education are also, used to sort of figure out, are you a first generation college student? It's also, it's also usually a place for you to put their alma mater, right? So like, hey, I'm a legacy, all those kind of fun things. That goes here. That's the basics. The more sort of challenging stuff, the tricky stuff, is your education profile. Now, Common App especially starts with information about the guidance counselor and who your guidance counselor is, who your point person is if you're homeschooled, your education coordinator, whatever it is, the person who's sort of organizing your education. Then there is a place to self-report grades and classes. Now, important classification distinction on the self-reporting. 2 classifications of schools. There are schools that are self-reported, and then there are schools that are self-reporting. Now, this really deals more with testing. But if a school is self-reported, that means they are not necessarily, these are usually your test optional schools. They are not going to necessarily need to see any official grades, scores, etc. But they rely on an honor system of you to report your grades and classes. Okay, so they're not going to ask for anything official, and you will just self-report. That is a self-reported school. Self-reporting, which is the sort of general grouping, is where basically they're still going to want to see all the official stuff. You're still going to have to send your scores from College Board or the ACT. You're still going to have to send a high school transcript. They, in a sense, are double checking you. So whatever you do, be honest. They will see your transcript in that case. So when you report your courses, they usually only want for the senior year because that is usually the most challenging workload. They'll see everything else on your transcript. They also sometimes use the senior year to sort of see, hey, what are they add dropping, etc. They also do give locations for you to do courses that you've taken at local colleges, local universities, anything sort of outside your actual school. Online, anything along those lines. If you've taken online courses over the summer, there is places to put that. There's also location for academic honors, for achievement. Now they sort of organize these. They go like national, state, local, school. right? All different styles of honor. So you have like National Honor Society, that's on the more national level. You then have like your school honor roll, that's a school achievement. You have a chance to put all of them down. Any and all academic achievements that you have, put them down. And then at the very end, there's usually a place for your career interest, right? What are you interested in doing? That allows them to sort of see where the thrust of your courses and grades have gone, right? Like, oh, this kid wants to be engineering. That makes sense of why they've taken a lot of physics classes. Or, this kid wants to do engineering. I wonder why they didn't do physics, right? It gives them a sort of a framework, a ability to sort of be like, why is the student taking the course they're taking or not taking the courses they're taking? Now, there is a place to put undecided if you have no clue, and that's perfectly fine. But again, when it comes to this, I cannot stress this enough. Be honest. There have been many, there have been many situations, there have been whole scandals where students and parents have not been honest on the application. So make sure you are. Make sure everything that you are giving to the school is 100% factual and honest. That includes in the testing. Again, this is where you report it. Again, there's test optional schools. They're going to allow you to self-report it. They don't care. College Board doesn't have to send anything. ACT doesn't have to send anything. They are going to, because at the end of the day, right, they're test optional. But your test score is, can still be like a check in the plus column for you. So they give you the option of self-reporting in those test scores. But again, be honest, especially because remember, if you're doing this on the Common or the Coalition app, it's going to go to schools that are probably not test optional as well. So they have all sorts of different ones. I've just put a couple of the tests up here. SAT, ACT, your APs, your IBs, subject test. If you are a student who came from our country, usually in the last 3 years before college, your TOEFL, you do not need to report all scores. But make sure you report all scores that you will send, that will be sent to the school. Check the score policy. There are, again, 3 usual options for this. One is that they want all scores. One is they just want the best possible score. And very important, you can report a score for a test that you will take in the future. All right. So if you will take, let's say you're applying early decision, you're going to take the November test. You can say, I'm going to take this November test. I don't have the score, but you will get this score report. If you do that, you must send that score to the college. You must send that ACT or that SAT score to the college. You do not have that option. So if you report any score, those scores must be sent. That is sort of the challenge of taking that November test before, right after early decision, early action, is that you really don't have an option because you put in your application that I'm taking this test. And therefore, you have to send them those scores. Now, activities. This is everything else you've done outside of school, right? It's the type of activity. It's a position, it's leadership. Remember, position leadership is a great way to sort of show how invested, how active you are in that particular activity or sport. Any honors and accomplishment, which also includes just sort of a general overview of what you did in the activity. And probably the most challenging part of this entire thing, this is the one that I remember spending tons of time with students sort of going over, the time spent on it. The years in high school, they don't care about middle school. They do give a location for if you're going to continue it afterwards. If you're doing it during the school year or during the summer, the hours per week you spent. Obviously, you're going to be ballparking. You're not going to be like, well, I spent 2.5 hours or 2.3, I spent 2 hours and 40 minutes every day or every week, right? It's ballpark. You do slight rounding. The weeks per year. Keep in mind, there's only a finite number of hours in the day. There's only a finite number of weeks in the year. This is, in a sense, a mathematical thing. You can't, there are only 168 hours in a week. Okay? If there's only 168 hours in a week, and to be honest, at least 50 of them are spent sleeping, usually. That's assuming about 7 hours of sleep, not even 8. If that much time is spent sleeping, chances are you can't do like, this student during the week of school, during the summer, did 180 hours of stuff in a week. That is impossible. So do make sure that you are, in a sense, honest. Keep in mind that there are sort of finite limits on the amount of time you can spend on something. And start keeping track of this now. Again, this is sometimes one of the more challenging parts of the application to fill out. And the last question in every activity is, will you continue the activity in college? This is very important. It indicates what you're, right? If there's 3 things that you're saying, yeah, I'm going to continue in these colleges, those are probably the 3 things you care the most about. And they will put things down. I remember on my college acceptance letter, I got a personalized, like, hey, we really hope to see you doing blah, 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 right? They care about this stuff. They're not just accepting a series of numbers, they're accepting a person. And so they want to know what the person is like, what the person cares about, what the person is passionate about that they are accepting. Now, the part that probably all of you are slightly freaking out about, the essay. After performance in school, after standardized test score, the essay is the top factor. It is an essential interview. It gives colleges an understanding of your passions, your personality. This is important. We've talked a lot about the grades, about the education, about the activities. Good essays, the best essays, reinforce things that we've talked about or show something that isn't there. A lot of times students' first essays are like resumes. As we talked before, there's an activity spot. There's an education spot to put your courses, your grades. There's an activity spot to put the clubs, the leadership, the sports teams, your captain, all that. You know, if you won a state title, the essay is not the place to sort of talk about all that again. It's a great place to sort of reinforce that, maybe your work ethic, your perseverance, or some trait like that that might be connected to a sport or an activity. But you don't want to just repeat anything, or you want to show something that's completely separate, right? Something that, something that isn't on the application, some sort of family dynamic or some sort of, personal belief or value. Those are the great things to sort of show in those essays, not just, hey, look at all the things I did. Now, because we get a lot of questions on this one. Outside of this, if you do have a situation that there is an inconsistency in your application, there is a noticeable dip in your grades, there is a semester that you took off, something along those lines. If you need to explain any inconsistencies or concerns with your application, there is a place to do this. However, and I cannot stress this enough, only do this if there's a legitimate reason for that inconsistency. I have had students who have done it because I remember I had a student, actually one of the first students I sort of helped through this process, who basically had to take like a quarter of the school year off because he was participating in a game. Actually, it was like the Korean version of American Idol, right? So he was gone for a quarter because he was like getting up to like the quarterfinals and that. That's a legitimate reason, Family illness, personal sickness, those are legitimate reasons for those inconsistency, not my freshman grades aren't great because I had a really slow start in freshman year because I was getting used to high school. That's not a legitimate reason. Colleges don't want to see that because that applies to be honest, probably like 75 to 80% of students. So legitimate reasons for those inconsistencies. Now, besides the personal statement, many colleges use it. They have an additional information, right? They can be questions such as what program, what school they want to attend, additional essays, right? Why do you want to attend the school, right? This is that why us essay, how the school can help you achieve dreams, why you would be a good fit for the school. However, though, they also, and I remember, I think it was, I don't remember if it was Cornell or Carnegie Mellon. I think it was, once it was, but it was one of those schools. They had like a place that you could like upload video files or PDFs or JPEGs. Places that you could put like art portfolios, or hey, here's a fun video of me, or here's a video of me like teaching kids to do like promotional videos, right? Because sometimes you have those, like a club put out like a video because they were doing like a training exercise or something like that. Or personal websites. Maybe you have a personal website. You're a website designer looking to apply to like for computer science, and you've created websites. You can put links there. That's all going to be on the supplements. So, and this, I cannot stress this enough when it comes to the supplements. If there are essays and questions on the supplements, especially if they are essays, take them as seriously as those on the main application. okay? Take them incredibly seriously, because if the college is asking about whatever it is, if the college is saying, hey, why do you want to go here, right? What's so great about the school that you want to come here for 4 years? They care about the answer, right? The answer, if they are asking the question, they want the information. There is no useless or extraneous information on this application. So make sure that you take it seriously. So take any supplemental essays as seriously as you take that main common or that main coalition essay, right? It is critical. Now, because I know a lot of you are going to be asking about it, here's some sort of quick tips for the essay. 1, focus on you, right? Don't write about your mom, don't write about your coach, write about you. Now, you can write about how you have been changed by your relationship with those people, but the focus, the central aspect of those essays should be you. Make sure you avoid controversy, any political, religious, views, anything that might indicate that, bad views in education, sort of keep those out of your essay, right? There is a place to sort of stand on the soapbox. The common application or the application essay is not one. Now, there is an exception to this, which is that there are some schools and some school supplements that sort of say, in the spirit of free thought or free expression, blah, 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 blah. If they say something like that, or if the school is very clear that they are a fan of that, then you can sort of do a little bit more sort of soapboxiness. Otherwise, don't. General rule of thumb, make sure you're writing 1. You do not want your essay to be unfocused. If they are, it's going to feel scattered. It's going to be confusing. That is not good. College essays are very enjoyable for college admissions officers. We actually have a quote coming up on that. So they read these and they love them. And you don't want to be unfocused. You don't want to be sort of scattered, because that's not the impression that you want to give a college. Now, my personal sort of, I don't want to say pet peeve, but one of the things I always sort of pointed out first when it came to sort of essays is this, everything's in the details. It's really easy to say, I went for a swim that morning. Make sure, though, instead of doing that, you use vivid imagery, right? The sun was shining, the wind blew gently across my hair, as I picked up speed, right? Something that's a little bit more vivid imagery. What did you see, smell, touch, taste, hear, think, right? Use quotations, use dialogue, use internal monologues. Those are all great on a college application. And in general, even the simplest story great writing, great explanation, great use of vivid imagery, bringing those details to life can make any story amazing. Because one of the best essays I read was about a kid who was going to Washington Heights to get his hair cut. And the reason why it was a great essay is not because the story itself was unique or amazing, right? He's going to get his hair cut. He's walking through Washington Heights getting his hair cut. But you could get a sense of who he was. You could get a sense of his culture, of the importance of that culture to him, of how he thought, how he felt, sort of how the different sights and things that he was seeing, the people interacting with each other, how they affected him. And it was amazing because of that. So the little details, those little things, they are what matter. And above all, don't be repetitive. Don't say the same thing over and over again. Again, there are things earlier applications for your honors, for your achievements, for the state title. You don't have to continue repeating those over and over. I won the state title. I got it on my honor roll. Great. Focus on those little things. Focus on the things that are special and unique to you. You don't need to repeat things that are already in the application. Because again, and this is from Harvard, right? So many great essays. So many people write essays. There are so many great essays out there. And so a lot of times, like the essay time, when they get to read the essays, the college admissions officer gets to read the essay, it's like, hey, let's have fun with this. Put it on the screen, share it, show, joke, laugh, chat about it. So the essay, again, it's that first sort of impression of who you are underneath. After all the numbers, after all that sort of resume stuff, what is this person like? Now, the last aspect, right, the recommendation letters. Most schools, most colleges request recommendations from a guidance counselor and from 1 to 2 teachers. Now, your guidance counselor, right, will also send information about your school rank, your basic information about the school, and then about you. They provide context. Again, they give you they want a sense of who you're going to be in the classroom. Colleges is still an educational institution, but again, your guidance counselor might also give you an idea of what they are in a greater context. they're sort of important in that sense. Again, there's nothing on the application that if a college didn't want, right? If college didn't want something, they wouldn't ask for it. If they're asking for these letters of recommendation, they're important. They're going to give context. They're going to sort of show something. But, and this is critical, there are only so many, in general, right? For the most part, there are always more students than there are teachers. So lots of students are going to be asking teachers for these recommendations. Recommendations are due around the same time the application is. Okay, so the earlier in the year you identify and ask teachers you want to receive recommendation letters from, the better it's going to be. Now we're going to talk a bit about like who to ask in a couple seconds, because again, later it gets more people. That also means, that's not saying they're going to say no to you. They might, but it also means they're going to have less time to really write you a great recommendation letter, right? So you want to make sure that you ask them early so that they have the time to really think, really focus, and really write a great recommendation letter. So the teachers you want are teachers who have actually taught you, right? Not your homeroom teachers. The best ones, the ones that you want, are from teachers who actually know who you are, right? They've had you maybe multiple years. They've had you and spent a lot of time. You don't necessarily want the teacher that you're just starting out with in your senior year because they teach a class that you think would look really good. They teach your AP physics class, for instance, and you want to be an engineer. That may not be the best person. You might want your pre-calc teacher from the previous year, right? Because they spent the whole year with you. So you want teachers and people who really know who you are, that can really talk specifically, positively, and uniquely about you, right? That get a sense of who Johnny is, or who, Jane is, or whoever the person you are. You want somebody who can write about that. Maybe if there's a teacher that you spent like time in extra help with, or that also maybe is an advisor for your club, they may be a really great person to sort of write that recommendation letter for you, because again, they're going to know a bit more about you than say somebody who's only known you for a couple of weeks or a month. So keep that in mind when you're asking for these recommendation letters. The subject that the teacher teaches is less important than how well they know you. Now, we've talked about a lot. We've talked about all this stuff when it comes to the application. But the biggest thing I can give you, biggest piece of advice I can give you for the application is to not procrastinate on starting it. Start early with your plan, start as soon as possible. Set yourself a timeline to stay on track. Let's say, right, it's, today is some day, right? Let's random month, right? Okay, here's today. I want to make sure I finish all the basic, right? The Common App, it opens up at the beginning of August. So there is time. Set yourself a timeline. Okay, if today's here, I want to make sure I get all the basic information on my Common Application done. I want the family, I want the profile, I want the education, I want the testing, I want all that done, right? Because they allow you to save. They allow you to save it and sort of keep track of it, right? I want all that done. Then what's the next step, right? Okay, well, I got to draft the essay, right? Plan these all out. If you don't have a calendar or don't have a planner, get one. Get something that will allow you to sit down and draft all this out and go through and say, okay, I want to do college visits here. I want to get the first draft of my application. I need to get all my basic information. That means I might need to talk to my family members. I might need to, find information, maybe if you have a sibling who's much older than you are, you might have to call them up and find out, hey, what did you, get all that information from them, whatever it is, right? Make sure if you're visiting colleges, make sure you talk to your parents so that they have the time, the ability to take you, or do those virtual tours. Set aside a block of time to be like, hey, I'm going to do all my research on this school, right? Whatever day it is. What deadline are you going to ask your teachers for recommendations? All right, meet with your counselor to sort of use them to help set out a college list, right? When your application deadlines are, right? How many schools are you applying to by that application deadline? All of this should be set out. So get a calendar, get a planner, get something to help you sort of keep track of all that, because it is going to be critical. And if you're still confused, if you're still uncertain, if you're still feeling like this is so overwhelming, feel free to reach out to us. Let us know. We have tons and tons of center directors. Every center director we have has to go through an entire certification course on college counseling, on this college admission process. They know all this as well as I do. They also have information on, specific colleges, especially if it's like more local ones, right? They have a lot of that local knowledge for your state schools, for your, some of the other, other schools that, especially if you are looking at like a local or state colleges, they're going to have that information. It's going to be a lot more personalized. It's going to be directed at you. If you need anything, please reach out. At the end of this, there will be a short survey that's going to pop up. It's going to ask you if you want a consultation. It is free. It is there. If you have any questions, either ones that I did not answer or anything else, please say yes. Leave your name, a phone number, and your zip code. The zip code's critical so I can make sure to connect you with the closest C2 center to you, right? If I don't have the zip code, I can accidentally connect you with someone who's like across the country. And that would be bad. I don't want to do that. So please leave that information if you have any questions. For all those of you who are seniors and starting on this application process, I wish you the best of luck. I know you're all going to be fantastic. If you're going to be amazing. Thank you so much for listening to me tonight. I hope you all have a great week, a great weekend, and good luck when it comes to the college application process. Thank you, everybody.